One of the questions I get asked the most regarding book collecting is, what do I think about the Barnes & Noble collectible editions? How does the quality compare to something like Easton Press or the Franklin Library? And are they worth it? Well, today I will be answering all of those questions and showing you my own collection. In case you live outside of the United States or are just unfamiliar with the retailer, Barnes & Noble is the largest chain bookseller in the US. And although it doesn't operate any physical store locations outside of the US, it does offer options to many international bookstores to place orders for their customers. And in 1992, Barnes & Noble released their original collectibles editions, known as the Barnes & Noble Exclusives, featuring classic works in dark leather, outer gold text, ribbon bookmarks, and interior decorative paper. Looking on a shelf, very much akin to something like Franklin Library. After the success of a louder and more embellished copy of the complete works of Lewis Carroll in the early 2000s, these leather-bound classics underwent a rebrand to become the Barnes & Noble collectible editions that we see today, featuring much bolder designs and a lot more color. I'll just come right out and say it, these books do not compete with Easton Press or the now defunct Franklin Library in terms of quality, but they're not really meant to. The Barnes & Noble collectible editions are priced at an average of $30 US. And when considering any new hardcover that you would pick up new at a bookstore costs anywhere between $20 to $40, these books are really marketed towards people that are beginning their book collecting journey, readers who want a higher quality hardcover than the average, and readers who want books that look eye-catching on a shelf. Typically manufactured in China, these collectible editions feature bonded leather covers, hybrid binding with both sewn and glued components, gold or silver edges, ribbon bookmarks, and decorative front and back papers. Something important to note is Barnes & Noble now offers two types of collectible editions: the hardcover edition, like you see here, and the softcover edition. I say important because many buyers have mistakenly purchased the wrong version of the collectible when purchasing online, because honestly, the pictures look incredibly similar. So just double check and verify which version you are trying to purchase. The first book I have on my shelf is the Holy Bible, the King James Version. As I'm sure you can tell, I haven't read from this copy. I haven't read from any of these copies, in fact, although I did read the King James Bible cover to cover once for an English class. Surprisingly, this collectible edition does contain quite a bit of artwork, as many of them do not, which is a shame, I think. The next book is actually not a Barnes & Noble collectible edition, but is a Canterbury Classics leather-bound edition, often sold at Barnes & Noble with their collectibles. I know, it's a little confusing. Barnes & Noble does now offer their own US Constitution, however, it does differ both in length and in the included additional writings. I have a few copies of the US Constitution, but this is the most aesthetically pleasing version that I own. Next, and one of my favorites honestly, is the Classic Horror Stories, a compilation of horror from authors such as Edgar Allan Poe, Bram Stoker, and H.P. Lovecraft, just to name a few. This compilation again lacks artwork, but it does contain some of my favorite horror stories. Speaking of Bram Stoker, I have Dracula. I actually will be reading from this copy very soon, as I am doing a reread for this channel and cannot find my Easton Press copy anywhere. I'm hoping that despite the exceptionally thin pages, the reading experience is good. Again, no artwork. Next is a book I will read again one day, Les Mis. The thicker these editions are, the more prone to spine damage they become. You can see I have never read from this, yet the spine is already so flexible. My very large Jane Austen compilation has the same issue. Very malleable, so just handle and read with excess caution if you're going to read from these editions. Next is 4 novels by Ernest Hemingway. If you've been here before, you know I am biased, as I do read a lot of Hemingway and therefore keep many copies on hand, but this is a volume I would highly recommend. Not only do I like the look of this edition, but Hemingway wrote a lot of books. More than I think some people realize, so if you're starting out on your Hemingway journey and are unsure where to begin, this compilation has 4 of his greatest works all in one place and for a great price. Next is Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar and the Collected Poems. Like the US Constitution, this is technically not a Barnes & Noble collectible edition, but rather a HarperCollins Leatherbound edition sold by Barnes & Noble alongside their own collectibles. I really love this one, the colors, the silver edges, and I really enjoy most Sylvia Plath. One of the more popular editions, the Iliad and the Odyssey. This is another edition I really enjoy aesthetically. I think the more neutral colorway, the front and back pages, and weirdly, even though the paper is the same as the other editions, because the text is so dense with sentences crossing the entirety of the page, the translucency isn't so bothersome here. On the topic of mythology, we have the Tales of Norse Mythology, and there is artwork. There's just something so nice and almost expected about having artwork in a collectible edition, so I'm so thankful they provide something in this collection. There's also artwork in the Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales, and of course in the Illustrated Fables. However, there are none in Beauty and the Beast, none in A Treasury of Classic Poetry, and none in the Irish literature or the fairy and the folktales, which I just think are missed opportunities, if I'm being honest. Are these collectibles worth the money? Yes, if you're looking for a hardcover version of your favorite novel, stories, or compilation, you can't beat $30 for a hardcover of this caliber. However, if you're going beyond picking books that just look nice on a shelf and you're looking for a collectible edition for true craftsmanship, longevity, and investment, my suggestion would be to save your money and put it towards a used copy of a finer press available. Do you have any of the Barnes & Noble collectibles? And if not, do you think you would purchase any? Let me know in the comments down below.